Thandiswa Mazwai will treat audiences to her musical special, A Letter to Azania, later this month. The show tracks a letter the singer is writing to Azania as a place of freedom. She's described it as an expression of the melancholy that comes with a dream deferred. But first, let's take a listen at this. Let's get you more on that deliciousness now. We're joined by Thandiswa Mazwai. Thank you very much for your time this morning. So what does Azania need to know about the dream deferred?
Hi, how are you? Good morning.
Morning, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I grew up during apartheid South Africa, and the name was Azania was very ubiquitous at the time, and it was a utopia that we imagined we would arrive at when we found freedom. And my feeling right now is that the country is sinking into a dystopia that is moving further and further away from our vision of this new world where there would be no violence and there would be justice, and that this world would be driven by ideologies such as Ubuntu, which I think we've lost quite a lot of.
So is this sort of maybe taking it back, right? So like we heard during that short clip, you are calling on those who walked before us, who made such an impact that to date it is being felt. And so this dystopia that you speak of that South Africa is currently in, kind of a reawakening, if you will?
Absolutely, a reawakening, a reimagining of this new world, because we, I think in the show what I hope to do is, one, to reinvigorate and bring back the interest in our history of empire as Africans, and also the importance of the fact that, I feel at home all over the place, all over Africa. When I'm in Senegal, I'm home. When I'm in Ghana, I'm home. And that we are really one Africa. But also it's about us, finding the peace and the joy to be able to reimagine new worlds, which at the moment is really, we're at the precipice of something that feels to me like a disaster for the entire continent, not just for South Africa.
How's that going, that collection or recollection of memory or history, right? Because there's also some things that you find in the archives that you're just like, sure, wow, were we capable of doing such as a people? In as much as you find the gold, right? There's also some dark things that you can find and pick up on your way.
Absolutely, but I think at the moment I'm not really focusing on the historic darkness. I think that there's a present day darkness that we need to focus on, so that what we leave behind is beautiful for future generations. But I've had a lot of fun excavating. I'm working on a new album And the album is called Sankofa, which is a word from Ghana, which means to go back and fetch. I've had a great time making this album and sampling from, old recordings of Unhobe and Uadi, and going to Senegal and getting people to play the ngoni, for instance, on my music, or the kora on my music. It's just been really beautiful, tying together all these different sounds.
How are you doing? I mean, you speak of the present day darkness, you speak of, some of the light that you're finding, and ahead of your show, I guess, essentially, right? Like having spoken about how everywhere you touch or wherever your foot lands on this continent, it's home. How has that enriched you in how you show up?
I think that from the very beginning, of my career, I've always felt this very strong connection with the rest of the continent. And South Africa being the last to get its independence, we had, a very hard time seeing ourselves as part of the rest of the continent, I think. So for me, it's been a very enriching experience to travel the continent and to hear the different languages and see the different faces. And I mean, I'm decked out in my jewelry all the time, or jewelry from Mali, from all over Africa. So for me it's been extremely enriching. But I think in terms of the condition here at home, the continuing restlessness of being a black person in this country, that I think that is something that still sits very painfully at my chest. And I do have a huge disappointment in our leadership for what feels like a complete, what do you call it? Abantu balikelwe. And that's the ngesingisi. But, this sense that we've been forgotten, that our politicians are focusing on things that are not always going to be for the good of everyone in this country.
A letter to Azania will be an offering by Thandiswa Mazwai next week in Cape Town. So if you're in Cape Town, if you're in Joburg, if you're in Limpopo, wherever you are, if you want to hear about the dream deferred and what needs to be done about changing the trajectory of the country, I guess, you can head on over to the show. Thank you so much, Thandiswa Mazwai.
You can hear how I feel about it. I don't assume to be a voice for many, but this is how I feel about it.
Yeah.
And it's, an exploration of how my music has shaped this idea for myself. So, and we might play some new music as well.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much for your time this morning.